Tutoriales de gramática.
Grammar tutorials.
Imperfecto de subjuntivo.
Imperfect subjunctive. What is the subjunctive? As you saw in the tutorials about the subjunctive, like the indicative, is a mood in Spanish that is used in several verb tenses. We decide between the indicative mood and the subjunctive mood depending on the structures in which the verb is found and according to the meaning of the sentence.
De pequeña, mi abuela siempre me hablaba en francés. ¿Y te gustaba? Sí, me encantaba que me hablara en otra lengua. Era como un juego para mí.
The imperfect subjunctive. Forms. The imperfect subjunctive, also called past subjunctive, can be conjugated two ways. Please note that both forms mean the same and are interchangeable. To form the most common version of the imperfect subjunctive, take the third-person plural form of the preterite, take off ron, and add the following endings to the resulting stem. The endings are the same for AR, ER, and IR verbs.
Ra, ras, ra, ramos, rais, ran. Viajar, viajaron. Viajara, viajaras, viajara, viajáramos, viajarais, viajaran.
Please note that the nosotros, nosotras form always has a written accent. Remember that some verbs are irregular in the preterite. In order to form the imperfect subjunctive, take the third-person plural form of the preterite, take off ron, and add the imperfect subjunctive endings.
Pudieron, pudiera. Quisieron, quisiera. Fueron, fuera. Hicieron, hiciera. Dijeron, dijera, etc.
The second form of the imperfect subjunctive has the following endings.
Se, ses, se, semos, seis, sen. Viajar, viajaron. Viajase, viajases, viajase, viajásemos, viajaseis, viajasen.
Uses of the subjunctive. Expressing wishes, hopes, and desires. Remember that with many expressions that are used to express wishes, hopes, or influence, with verbs such as querer, esperar, desear, we use que plus the subjunctive when the subject of the two clauses is different.
Quiero que leas este libro. Esperamos que el examen sea fácil. Deseo que las vacaciones no acaben nunca.
When we refer to past wishes, hopes, or influences, we must use the imperfect subjunctive. Take a look at the following examples.
Cuando era pequeño, mi madre quiso que yo leyera este libro. Esperábamos que el examen fuera más fácil. De pequeña, siempre deseaba que las vacaciones no acabaran nunca.
When the main verb that expresses a wish or a preference is in the conditional, the subordinate clause uses the past subjunctive.
Me gustaría que leyeras este libro. La escuela es importante, pero preferiría que las vacaciones no acabaran nunca.
The subjunctive can also be used to express wishes in independent clauses formed with ojalá or ojalá que. If the wishes or hopes are unlikely, the imperfect subjunctive is used.
Ojalá hiciera buen tiempo mañana, pero parece que va a llover. Ojalá que pudiéramos ir de vacaciones a Colombia, pero tendremos que trabajar mucho en verano.
Uses of the subjunctive. Requesting something and exerting influence. Remember that in constructions that communicate a request or a demand, we use the infinitive in the subordinate clause if the subject of the two clauses is the same. However, we use the subjunctive if the subjects are different. When the request or demand refers to the past, we use the imperfect subjunctive.
Siempre les pido a mis amigos cubanos que me hablen en español. Siempre les pedía a mis amigos cubanos que me hablaran en español.
Uses of the subjunctive. Conditional sentences. To express a condition about the present or the future that is unlikely, hypothetical, or even contrary to fact, we use si plus the imperfect subjunctive. When stating the consequence, it is typical to use the conditional verb form.
Si hiciera sol, iríamos a la playa.
If it were sunny, we would go to the beach.
Si ganara la lotería, me compraría un barco.
If I were to win the lottery, I would buy a boat.
Si yo fuera un animal, me gustaría ser un león.
If I were an animal, I would like to be a lion. When in English, you would say, if I could, if I were, or if I had, these clauses would be expressed in Spanish as
Si pudiera, si fuera, si tuviera.
uses of the subjunctive. Relative clauses. In relative clauses, we use the indicative to refer to people or things that we know to exist, or who we can assume exist.
Conozco a un estudiante canadiense que habla francés.
I know a Canadian student who speaks French. I know who he is. We use the subjunctive, however, to refer to people or things that are unknown or hypothetical, or whose existence we're not sure of, or for people or things that we know do not exist.
¿Conoces a alguien que dé clases de francés?
Do you know anyone who gives French classes? This refers to an unknown, hypothetical person. If the verb in the main clause refers to the past, the imperfect subjunctive is used in the subordinate clause.
Cuando fuiste a la universidad la semana pasada, ¿conociste a alguien que diera clases de francés?
When you went to the university last week, did you meet anyone who gives French classes? This refers to an unknown hypothetical person. Uses of the subjunctive. Expressing likes, feelings, and opinions. To express likes, feelings, or opinions about a fact or a piece of information, we use the subjunctive when the people the two separate verbs in the sentence refer to are different. We use the infinitive when the two verbs in the sentence refer to the same person.
Me molesta escuchar la tele de los vecinos a todas horas. Me molesta que los vecinos pongan el volumen de la tele tan alto.
If the verb in the main clause refers to the past subjunctive is used in the subordinate clause.
Cuando vivía con María y Sergio, a Sergio le molestaba que yo pusiera el volumen de la tele tan alto.
Almost all the structures that express likes, feelings, or opinions about a piece of information work in the same way.
Gustar que, encantar que, interesar que, molestar que, fascinar que, extrañar que, preocupar que, dar miedo que, dar pena que, dar vergüenza que.
Uses of the subjunctive. Expressing courtesy. In order to express requests more courteously, we use the imperfect subjunctive form of querer.
Disculpe, señor García. Quisiera hacerle una pregunta.
Excuse me, Mr. Garcia. I would like to ask you a question.